Welcome to another episode of Lattes and Leaders, where we are bringing on young professionals who are killing it in their industries. We're so thankful that you are watching another episode. This episode is sponsored by MJW Mortgage. We are in their beautiful studio right now, and so we're thankful to them. But today we have on Josh Keene. He is a dear friend of mine. I really enjoyed this conversation. He gives a lot of really practical, in-depth advice. He has ranged across all types of sectors of the real estate industry. And so currently he's in property management. He's a full-time real estate agent on the purchase buyer side and investment side. He has flipped properties. He has long-term rentals. And so he has seen it all. And the amount of wisdom and just knowledge that he drops about each one of these different things is amazing. He is truly in the weeds. He is an expert in the real estate market. And I learned a ton, and I know you will too. Josh Keene.
Dillon.
Another brother in Christ. So actually the person I had on before, we got to talk about faith quite a bit. And so hopefully that'll be scattered in between here. But again, this podcast is just for young professionals who are coming up in their industries, doing the right things, grinding, figuring out some problems, and we're in the midst of it. So we're in the battle. And so this is for just those guys who are in the midst, but just want to hear from people like them, motivated, ambitious young guys who are like, man, there are guys going through what I'm going through. And so that's what this is for. As we start out, man, I love to hear about people's background. And so indulge me, please.
How far back do you want to go? You want like last 5 years? You want last
You're in real
life?
estate property management. Usually that has to do with a dad, father figure, uncle that is also in the same business. Where did you start with kind of getting your hands dirty?
Yeah. I'd say that's not terribly inaccurate. My uncle was a GC. My dad is incredibly handy when it comes to construction. So I guess kind of grew up in that realm of, we don't pay people to fix stuff. We just kind of fix it ourselves. We install whatever we need to ourselves. The idea of real estate really came from being broke in California and wanting a second source of income. We were living there at the time, me and my wife, and had no money, and I was working a corporate job, didn't really love the corporate job. So just started researching, how do I make money outside of my job? And I landed on real estate, landed on investing is where I started. So wholesaling, flipping. My mom had done a flip my freshman year of college. They enjoyed it. She had been an interior designer for like 20 years, something like that. So she's got that background. But really just kind of it birthed from being broke. And that's where it came from. And it's morphed since then from flipping into now being a realtor, being a property manager, still doing investments, but really have shifted more to business rather than investing specifically. The investments kind of come from tax advantages for me at this point. Buying a house or two a year just to make sure my tax bill is not crazy high. But yeah, we started the property management. At this point, it's been, I believe it was 2021 is when I started managing properties. Officially LLC and everything in 22. So it's been about 3 years official. Got my license as a realtor in 22. And it's been a crazy journey since then. We currently manage just under 400 properties. We've had a crazy spikes a couple times that we have to recover from. The realtor stuff's been fun. The Lord's been incredibly kind and blessed me and my wife just with business, with good people to work with, people like yourself where, shared values. And we don't love to work with people who are just going to be terrible, like slumlords. We don't want to work with slumlords. We don't want to work with people who are not going to take care of the properties, not going to take care of the tenants. And as a realtor too, you don't really want to work with people who are, not looking at the person on the other side of the transaction as a person. They're just looking at it as dollar signs, which obviously you want to get the most out of your investment, but there is reason inside of that as well. So
yeah, that entrepreneurship you talked a little bit about. We'll keep going back, and then I'll bring you in. I'll drag all that out. But the entrepreneurship kind of mentality, where did that come from? You said you were in California, which I want to ask you how you got to California. But you had a corporate job there. Was entrepreneurship ever in your mind throughout high school? Did you see someone in that? Or was the corporate job just so killing to the soul that you were like, I got to try something else and then figure it out?
It is a little bit of both. Entrepreneurship definitely runs in the family. So like I said, my uncle was a GC. My other aunt and uncle, they started and ran a kennel for a long time. My dad currently owns his own financial practice. My grandma and grandpa, they used to own a shoe store in Indianapolis. So there is a lot of entrepreneurship. My other side of the family is farmers. They ran their own farm for a long time. So there definitely is that, but I would agree that the corporate job itself pushed me away from that. I never ever, growing up, my dad would, put on his suits and go to work. And I know you're a big suit guy, big sport jacket guy. But he would put on his suits and go to work. And I was like, I will never do that. That's just not me. I'm not going to pretend that that's me. This is like my dressed up. Like I don't get more than a golf polo. I haven't worn a sport jacket since my last wedding, which it has its time and place, but I started my own business so I can wear whatever I want. But yeah, it definitely runs in the family. I was going into my corporate job, slacks in a polo every day, 9 to 5, 8 to 5, whatever it was. And in California, when you're driving to work, 8 to 5 becomes 6 to 7 because of traffic. So definitely not ideal. It definitely pushed me into how can I gain back more time, which the interesting thing is now I work more than I've ever worked in my life, but I enjoy the work. So,
did you grow up in Indiana?
Grew up here in Indiana, grew up in Zionsville, left for California in 2015 for college and for the military. Or I went to Georgia first for basic, and then went to college and was in the reserves for 6 years in the military. And my unit was out in California.
What branch?
Army.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you went out to grad school too? Is that what you said? Or school?
Just college degree. Yeah, okay. College bachelor degree in kinesiology. So I was a mechanic in the Army, got a degree in kinesiology for personal training, and then now I do real estate. So they all tie together perfectly. Yeah.
I can see it.
It all works together.
And
yep.
How did an indie boy take California?
Zionsville growing up in north side of Indianapolis is pretty boring. It's walking trails, it's quiet neighborhoods, it's nice places to eat. And then I was like, I just wanted something new. So I went to California, experienced California. It's great. Parts of California are beautiful, parts are not as beautiful. Where we were living, it was like a concrete jungle to me because I grew up with trees and grass and all this stuff. And there it was just roads and concrete. But now having 3 kids, 3 and under, I love the walkways, the quiet parks, the neighborhoods, the nice places to eat. So it's more of just a mind shift. California was great for the time of the season that I was there for, but we're happy to be back here in Indiana for sure.
And you got your real estate license in California?
I got my real estate license here. Okay. So we actually moved from California to Tennessee and bought a live and flip in Tennessee, in Knoxville, Tennessee for about 6 months. We lived there. I gutted the upstairs, was just doing a live and flip there while we had a flip going on in Greenwood, and bought another rental in Westfield. We had gotten pregnant right when we moved to Tennessee and just decided, why are we living here with no friends and family? Couldn't find a church that we really loved. So we came back up to Indiana after that. So I had started my realtor's license in Tennessee. Great that it's not, I don't believe it's a reciprocal state for licensing. So I just stopped it there and I moved to Indiana and got my license here once we moved back up. Yeah.
So let's go into real estate. I mean, probably one of the most sought after entrepreneur, like you see these guys on social media and they make it seem so luxurious to be a real estate investor or property flipper. You got Joanna Gaines. And then you kind of see the practicalities of it, that it's maybe much harder to do.
For sure.
Which one did you start? It sounds like you started with flipping, you went into property management, and then got your real estate license. Is that kind of the sequence of?
Pretty close. Yeah. Flipping, realtor, and then property management. So flipping for sure is not as glamorous as people make it sound. You can make a lot of money, you can make it quickly, and you can also lose a lot of money and you can lose it quickly. The thing that I tell people is I don't really view flipping as investing. It technically is. I view it more of a business. You're buying a product, you're improving that product, and you're selling it back on the market. So in order to do a lot of flips, you have to inevitably build a team, and you have to build a good team that you can trust to do those flips. So where I found my hangups were acquisitions. If I had acquired a property, I was working on the property, I was dealing with the contractors, and then I was trying to sell the property. Everyone goes in this roller coaster when they start of like, I've got a property, I made some money, now I've got no income, I'm going back down. So you need to find an acquisitions man, someone who can find you properties while you're working on their stuff. Or you can have someone who's running the project for you. So it's just this idea of, what are you wanting to build? We did some flips, we made some money. We did some flips, we lost some money. And we ended up landing on property management a little bit by default. And the business has worked well, so we stopped flipping. The market has gotten a little bit better where I'm seeing some more deals where we might get back into it in a little bit. But we'll see. Yeah, flipping is not as glamorous as people make it sound. We did land contract. We did a traditional flip with cash. We did a finance flip with a mortgage. we've kind of done all of it, and it all is got its own quirks, its own difficulties. But for me as a realtor in Hamilton County, for a commission, you can make about 10 grand. You can make 12 grand. You can make lower if you're doing like a cheaper house in Indy. But if you think about doing a flip and you want to make 25 grand, call it, you're going to take 6 months to do that. You're going to have risk of outlaying capital. As a realtor, if you do 2 transactions, you'll be pretty close to 25 grand. So it's just about the risk. Where is it worth going? Where can I supply the best product to the market? And I feel like as a realtor, I can do that better right now than I could as a flipper. So
let's get into that.
Yeah.
Because we have maybe like some boomers or some older generations that had some cash stocked up in 2008 and bought properties for a penny and then went and flipped them and made a crazy ton. Maybe they rented them for a while and then around 2020, they got to just cash out. And so you talked about how it's just a different environment. Talk about maybe how flipping has been done in the past and then what it truly does look like now. Is it like just too hard almost? Or is it, you said it's kind of getting better, but talk about what used to be and now what we're in.
Yeah, I would say, if you were a flipper in 2021, you could buy something, not do do anything to it and sell it 6 months later and make a profit. It just because of the way the market was, everything was so crazy with appreciation, low rates, all these factors. Now you have to actually do good work and put actual thought and design into your product. The thing that hangs me up is I don't have a team for flipping. So historically, there's been people who have owned properties. They had a ton of equity. They did a rehab to it. And like you said, they made a ton of money off of it, whether they bought it in a short sale or whatever, foreclosure, or they just bought it on market and it was cheaper then versus now. Now it's just, if you are set up to be a flipper, if you've got direct to seller marketing, I think you can have an amazing business and you can make a ton of money. Or if you're the little guy who can just go in and do one deal and your spread is significantly different because you don't have 3 kids to support and a mortgage and a wife who, you have to feed all these people, you have to pay your bills. The thing that I've learned in real estate and in business in general is circumstances matter tremendously. Like everybody has a different story. Everybody has different circumstances. What's their background? What do they have to pay for? What's their overhead? What matters to them? So for me, I just have to make sure I prioritize my time and where is my best ROI. And that seems to be realtor and property management. But for someone who's got very little overhead, who can go spend 3 or 4 months on a flip and maybe do the work themselves, some of it, or they can be on site a whole lot. I can't be on site every single day on a flip. Then they can go and make money on it. Historically, long-term buy and holds, that's the bread and butter, man. You buy a property, you don't care what it makes cash flow for 10 years, and then you've got equity. Like that's the absolute best way to do real estate, in my opinion.
So one thing my boss has said recently is he said that it's just a different method and you have to have way more shots on goal. Like you can't just find every like different neighborhood has something that you could flip and still make money out of, but you have to like go out, try to do offers. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And you're you're going and sending out offers and you're going to be denied 90% of the time, but you have to have way more shots on goal to find that actual right deal. And you said sometimes you can really get money, sometimes you can really lose money. I'm guessing that these guys who really want to get in, they don't have a team, they don't have an acquisition manager who's going and looking for these properties, but they're just like, I'm going to force it to work. I'm going to make it work. I can't, I don't have all this time to go do a bunch of shots on goal, but they really want a deal to come together. So they force it. I'm guessing that's what you mean by they lose money.
100%. Yeah. You get emotionally attached to different properties. Like, oh, I went and walked this one. I made an offer. I really loved it. They countered me at 10 grand higher. I think I'm going to take it. I think I can make it work. Let's run down the construction budget a little bit. You get into it and your construction budget goes up 10 grand. Now you're hosed, you lost money on it. And I think that's the difference between quote unquote professional investors and amateur investors. Of the professionals just don't get attached to the properties. They see it as a product. They're putting out 100 offers a week or 200 offers a week. And like you said, you get 1 or 2 of them. That's a great week. It's just a volume game.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't know it was going to be like those numbers.
Oh yeah. It's insane. I mean, not everybody obviously does that, but I think like the guys who are doing 100 flips a year, they're putting out thousands of offers to get those under contract. It's a reality. Whether you're going on the MLS or you're going through a wholesaler or you're doing it direct to seller, even if you're having those conversations, that's an offer. We're having a conversation. I give you a price, you don't like it. Okay, we'll revisit this in 3 months if you haven't sold your house. You're working those leads, and you can't. The thing that I also see is when flippers, they're like, oh, I want to flip 10 houses this year. And they start and 2 weeks later, they have a house under contract. Like that might work out. You might make money on that deal, but also like there's people who work leads for 2 years before they land that deal. You know, like they could be working it. Susie Joe, who's got a property that they met, she is not ready to sell. Her husband died. You know, she doesn't want to do the work. 2 years later, she's like, okay, I want to sell to you. You make 60 grand off of the deal. It's like they worked that for 2 years, you know, or whatever it is. It's not always the case of, I searched the MLS, I put on my 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom filter, and I found a place, and now I can make 50 G's off of it. It's just like, it's kind of an unrealistic goal, in my opinion. But, you know, it can happen. It can be there for sure.
I think setting those expectations are so important though, because I think people probably would never expect that. They think like, just go find a trashy looking house and go sell it and find some guys to work on it, and it's going to make a profit. It's going to sell. Which from the purchase side, we know that houses are not flying off the market, so it's not just a done deal. But I think the numbers, like you just expanded my mind of how much truly you do have to. I knew it had to be shots on goal. I didn't know it had to be that many shots on goal.
Yeah, and it depends on your goal too, right? If you only want to buy 2 that year, you don't have to do 100 a week. You can be more patient. But if you want to do to a scale where you can make it be a business, where you can be that cool guy on Instagram who's flipping houses, like, yeah, you're gonna have to do a lot of work. And that's the other thing too, is but there's this idea about real estate that there's so many lazy investors out there, like so many lazy investors. We have investors who they will not look for a deal. They will not analyze a deal. They will not analyze rehab. We do all of that for them. It's just, it's unfortunate because it just eats into my margin, but like, you know, we still get a deal out of it, but they just don't do anything. They're lazy investors who watch something that they wanted to buy a house and they've got cash to spend. And now here we are. The good investors are the people who are putting in the hours, you know, and they're analyzing the deals. And then you get to the point where it's super easy because you've done it so many times where like when I walk through a property, I could tell you a rehab budget very quickly. And I know there's a lot of people, you know, that can do the same thing, because we've looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houses and we've done rehabs and we've been in the game for long enough where, you know, I walk through, I know exactly how much it's going to cost to paint this place, to do new trim, to put in new cabinets. I've seen why like this cabinet situation is harder than this one because this is in the way, or the gas line's here or that or the other. It's on a crawl space, it's on a slab, it's in a basement, there's foundation issues, all these things of, yeah, it's quick now. But when you first start, you have to ingrain those numbers into your mind. And it just takes time, you know, and you can't be lazy. You just cannot be lazy. It won't work. Okay, well, let's start because now I'm very curious. Let's start with finding the home. If you were to go for a flip, I know you say you're not as much into it at the moment, but if you were to go to find a flip, are you going to Zillow and then slowly work through? You talked about investors not being emotionally attached and they're all about the numbers. What are some of the key indicators that they are like making sure is foundationally there before they ever do an offer? How they come up with their price, how they know their rehab, like what are some key things that like, it's like second nature coming out of your mouth as an investor? Like these are the things we talk about. Yeah. I mean, for me at my point, when I want to go buy a house, I want to buy something that the resale is very easy. So I don't want something where the layout is strange, or in that scenario where I can easily change the layout to it not being bad. You know, like I don't want a 1-bedroom. I just don't. If I'm going to flip a house, I want at least 2 bedrooms. I don't want something that's on a slab because if I want to move the plumbing, I can't move the plumbing. I want something at least on a big crawl so that we can move the plumbing around. If I were right now going to go try and find a flip, I would probably not. You can go to the MLS 100% or Zillow, whatever if you want to go on Zillow. I would probably start poking around to see a little wholesaler who's got a lot of time to do a lot of cold calling, and then just give him or her time to find something for me. You know, someone's like, oh, I want to start a wholesale business. I've started calling for 6 months. I've gotten some little bit of traction. Find someone who doesn't have the overhead of like, you know, New Paradox or Armies in Indy that have like these big overhead of, you know, they're wholesalers and they're great to work with. You can buy good deals off of them, but then you're also going up against a lot of other investors. You know, I want to find something which is the diamond in the rough. Like we have investors who say the same thing to me. They're like, you can find something that cash flows me $300 a month. I only need to put, you know, $5,000 into it when I buy it. And then the tenant's going to be in there and I can raise the rents every month. I'm like, if I find that, there's no chance I'm going to give it to you. Just 0%. I'm going to keep that for myself, man, because it's just not there, you know? So you have to me, if I was really wanting to buy a flip, I would try and find someone I could quote unquote partner with who wants to get into the real estate game, tell them some specific things that I look for. Like I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch brick house. Like that's what I want. Or I want a 2-story with 3-car garage or whatever it is. The other thing for me is I've done several flips where they didn't pan out and we kept them as rentals. So I'd want something that easily can be rented and that I would be okay with holding for a long time if the flip doesn't work out. So my current rentals that I want to buy are 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch brick houses. They just stand the test of time. Vinyl houses, they can look really bad if they're not taken care of. Brick doesn't ever look terrible. And the worst case, you just power wash that thing and paint it and it looks perfect. So it's just an easy way to keep up on the property. If we don't end up selling it, we can keep it as a rental. There will always be a market for selling a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, especially in this area. That's like your entry-level house for a buyer. There will always be a market for a renter who needs 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. So it's what's your exit strategy? What do you need to make from it? And then plan for the worst. That's the absolute biggest thing is if this doesn't work out, can I keep it?
Yeah. How do you get a hold of a wholesaler?
It's a good question.
You just have to go network.
You just got to kind of networking events. I've met people at networking events. You can, ask people who know people who know people. Honestly, like talk to a realtor, see if they've got an investor who's bought 100 houses that year, and then go talk to him and see where he bought his houses from or they bought their house from. Like just being in the game, it's the worst answer because when I used to listen to Bigger Pockets all the time, they'd ask that same question of like, how do you find your deals? And the people are like, they just kind of come to me. And it's a really bad answer because it gives the newbie investor nothing to go off of, but time in the game really is your friend. The longer you're in the game, the more people you meet, the more investors you come across, deals will come to your table. Like it kind of is what it is. But you also have to tell people, this is what I'm doing. If you just meet up for coffee and you're like, oh, I want to buy a house. Like, okay, cool. Like, what do you want to buy? Like, tell them exactly what you're looking for. I'm looking for a flip in Indy that's a 3-bedroom house. If you know of anything, please let me know. And then give it time and do that 100 times. When I first started in real estate, unfortunately, when I was still working my other job, so maybe don't do this, but I used to sit on Instagram and I would message every single realtor in Indianapolis the same copy and paste message of like, I buy houses in Indianapolis. This is what I buy. But then I also had a second message of like, I'm a property manager. This is after we had started property management. I'm a property manager. If you know of investors who need help, let me know. I can help manage their properties. And I've met several key players from that have given me business over the years. And it's just crazy how like it takes all of 3 seconds to message somebody on Instagram. And yeah, you're sliding into someone's DMs about real estate. It's whatever, but it's about just putting in the work. Like people just don't want to put in the work. I spent hours just messaging people over and over and over and over and being on Bigger Pockets, responding to posts, messaging people on Bigger Pockets. It's time in the game. And that's how you start getting deals.
You said the long-term rentals is probably still one of the best plays out there. It's more long-term. You're not going to get that big payday maybe. Mm-hmm. But is the BRRRR method still
for sure
the main thing? Okay.
Yeah,
give us like a 2-minute, you don't have to go into the super details about it, but what's BRRRR?
So buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. That's what BRRRR is. I can give you we did it a BRRRR and it was like the best deal I've ever did. I can give you those numbers if you want, but we bought a house in Noblesville for $160, I believe. We put $10,000 into it. It appraised at $250. So we refinanced. And I think after closing cost on both the purchase and the refi, I think I was all in for like $5,000 or something like that. And that property cash flows me I raised the rents last year. So I think before it was all of like $25, $50, which to me, it's like whatever. I used it as a tax write-off to lower my tax bill. And I gained equity in a property that I didn't pay for. So like the BRRRR is the absolute best method to get a rental property. Right now, the only thing that I see that's cash flowing turnkey, I could be wrong, but from what I've seen in the work that we do is low income and Section 8. That's the two that actually cash flow turnkey out the door. If you're looking to buy like A-class properties in Westfield, Carmel, Noblesville, Fishers, like it's basically impossible to find something that's turnkey that's going to rent for 1% rule or even break even. Unless if you're going to, obviously this is where I go back to circumstances. If you're going to put down 50%, none of this applies. If you're going to put down 20%, it does apply. So turnkey rentals, it's hard. It's hard to find one. If you've got money where you're okay negative cash flowing every month, then yeah, you could find turnkey rentals all day. But if you want to get any sort of positive cash flow and you don't want to buy Section 8 or low income or a house that costs, $90,000 and then do $5,000 every 3 months in maintenance for the next 20 years, then you're going to have to do a rehab, and you're going to have to buy something, be okay. It doesn't have to be a $80,000 rehab. It can be a $10,000, turn and burn, carpet, paint, maybe some fresh cabinets, something like that, new vanities, and then get out of there and put a renter in there.
And did you take that equity? So from what I understand with the burn method, you go and you refinance. You add 160, 170 with the 10K. Mm-hmm. It appraised for 250. So what, you pulled out 80 potentially?
Yeah, 250. I think 20% is $50,000. Okay. So after closing cost, it brought us just over. And my numbers are not perfect. I think it was 160 something. It was 10 something. I'm kind of rounding a little bit. I believe I was all in for about $5,000. So it worked out to that. So we didn't pull out the equity. We just left it in the property because we had to, when we refinanced, we just got a check for whatever the amount was, and I had left a little bit in the property. So it worked out very nicely, at least for us.
And you usually you pull out that refinance and you go put in another property. This is what most investors do.
That would be the best thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Whether we did that or not, I don't remember, but that would be the best thing to do. Yeah, you're just recycling your money. Mm. Yeah. Every time you buy a property, it's like, okay, whether you spent $5,000 on that, it's like, okay, now my working capital of $50,000, I'm down to 45 now. I'm going to go buy a property. And as long as I'm under 45 or maybe 40 or 35, it's obviously up to you again on your circumstances of what you want it to be. But yeah, that working capital, you just rinse and repeat. You go find the deals. And again, it's being patient. It's not, you can't do one every week. Maybe you can, and maybe if you're set up for that, great. But for me, I can't do one every week. I've got other responsibilities.
Most investors will not get in the game, or most people won't get in the game because they don't want to property manage. You decided
the exact opposite.
To slowly get out of the game to do probably what everyone's least favorite part is.
What? Yeah, I don't think anybody grows up dreaming of being a property manager. We kind of fell backwards into it. When I got my realtor's license, my dad had a client who had 3 rental properties, all townhomes in Westfield. They had fired their last realtor, property manager, whatever, because he wasn't doing a good job. So I sold one of them. That was my first transaction, literally the easiest transaction I've ever done. They already had a buyer lined up. I just got paid to literally do the paperwork, which is amazing. And we've been managing those 2 ever since. And when I first started managing them, we were charging, I think, 8%. And I was making, $200 to $50 a month off of managing these Westfield townhomes. One of the ladies had been in there for 10 years. She wasn't going anywhere. The other lady was perfect on-time payer. It was the easiest property management I've ever done. I was like, dude, I can do this so many times. I can just double down on this thing. I can get so many more properties. Fast forward now 3 years later, we're just shy of 400 properties. We have more Section 8 low income than we do A-class, but we're kind of scattered. We've got Noblesville, Westfield, Fortville, Brownsburg, Bloomington, Marion, Kokomo, Anderson, Indy. We're kind of all over the place. But yeah, for an investor, I'm not someone who'll tell you have to use a property manager. If you have under 10 units, you for sure can manage them yourselves if you want to. You will get calls from tenants. You will have situations that come up. I usually say people hire a property manager after a knife event happens. They had an eviction for a tenant. Somebody trashed their unit. They had a bad experience. Somebody didn't pay. They had a long vacancy, something like that, where they're like, I'm done. I don't want to have to deal with this. The biggest reason to use a property manager, in my opinion, is so that you've got time to go get your next investment deal. If you're spending time saving $100 a month because you don't want to pay a property manager, or $200 if you have a more expensive rental, is that worth not having the time to go find another deal? Because as you scale, it's only going to get harder. 1's easy, 2's a little bit harder, 3's a little harder. But if you get towards 20, 30, 40, all you're going to be doing is managing properties. It's hard to find deals. I have one investor who's an exception, and he's crazy. He has 62 and he manages themselves. He has a full-time job. He literally is a machine, and he just does it all himself. But traditionally, I would say once you hit 10, that's where I would probably hire a property manager. And for an investor, property manager is the absolute, if not the most important, it's top 2 most important roles in your investment. If you have a bad property manager, it just won't work out. I have an investor that we took over they had bought properties in November and December, and we took over in May or June, I believe. They hadn't got paid a single time in rent, and the rent was coming in. The manager it was Section 8, so it was kind of coming in. Just bad property management. They weren't taking care of the tenants. They weren't responding to the owners. it's just bad all around. The easiest way for us to take over is just good communication. We just communicate with our owners. We communicate with the tenants. We let people what needs to happen. You set expectations of like, if you don't pay by this date, you cannot stay. Like, this is not a free place to live. And obviously there's grace involved. They're like, oh, I lost my job. Can you give me 2 weeks? Like in this specific circumstance? Yes. But if you don't pay at that 2 weeks, that's what we agreed upon. Now you need to start moving out willingly before we have to evict you. So it's just setting expectations, understanding that there are people on the other side of it. Like, we're not just kicking people out onto the streets. If you don't pay or you trash the unit, like obviously there's legal repercussions because of that, but we try and take care of everybody. Yeah.
I think there's like this sentiment that investors or real estate guys just like don't care. They're the worst. All they care about is making money off of you.
Yeah.
You have 40 doors, so I don't know how many property manager or investors that is. But what are some things you can clear up about? Hopefully you don't say anything, but some things so my dad is an investor. He has 40 doors and he truly does care. Like he's not doing it just to like take advantage of people. He really does care about the property. He cares about the people. He tries to work with them in so many different, he has 40 doors and he manages, he's one of those crazy individuals. He's crazy.
Yeah.
And I've tried to talk to him otherwise, but he won't. So try to clear up the stigma about investors. They're the worst.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that the stigma is accurate on like 1 to 5% of investors. We don't want to work with slumlords. Like, we just won't. I just had a conversation where, a guy doesn't want to do some repairs to the property. I just told him like, we won't work with that. Like, if you don't want to fix the property to where it was insulation in the attic. There's no insulation in the attic at all. And he's like, I don't want to put insulation in. I'm like, dude, they can't, if they run the AC or heat, it's just gone. Like, there's no. And it's those types of conversations that are extremely frustrating because like we're the ones who get the backlash on the back end of the tenant complaining every single day that they can't keep their house cool and they've got kids in there and whatever. We don't want to work with that. There are people out there and it's extremely unfortunate. But I would say in general, the hardest people to work with is the guy who's got one property. If they have one property and they're extremely leveraged. So they're like at an 80-20 LTV or whatever. So that if the rent doesn't come in, they're mad because they have to pay the mortgage. And it's like, well, you shouldn't be buying a rental property if you're not okay paying the mortgage 1 to 6 times. Like, you're going to have vacancies. You're going to have someone who doesn't pay once in the span of 20 years. Like, you're going to have these things that happen. You're going to have repairs. It's like buying a vehicle. You can't buy a vehicle and expect to never take it to the mechanic. You're going to have to take it to the mechanic. There's going to be things that happen on your house. I would say overall, investors are great, but there for sure are slumlords out there that don't want to do repairs to the properties. It's just about, again, setting those expectations. Like, we won't work with you if you're not going to do these things. And I'm thinking about implementing like a literal sign off when we sign people saying, if you don't want to fix stuff, like these 5 things are non-negotiables. If we come to you and say it needs repaired, if you don't want to repair it, like, we're going to drop you as a client. Like, we're just not going to work with you. Like HV or furnace in the winter. Like, if you're like, oh, let's just limp it, because like it barely worked. Like, there's a difference between the furnace not working at all and it kind of works. Like, it's putting out some heat, but it won't get like higher than like 60 degrees, 63 degrees in their house. It's like, okay, we need to fix, whether it's the furnace or insulation or whatever, like we need to get them comfortable. They're the ones paying your mortgage. They're your client. You need to take care of them. But there definitely is the stigma. I think honestly, unfortunately, it falls more on the property manager than it falls on the owner. I think there's a lot of bad property managers out there who, whether it's on purpose or not, they're trying to make sure that their investor is taken care of and getting as much as they can. So they're sending in bad contractors who do bad work, or they're just not relaying it perfectly because they just make decisions on their own of like, oh, we don't have to fix that. The owner doesn't even know about it. So I think part of it is that there's no perfect equation, but I mean, we have a lot of tenants and we have great relations with a lot of them just because we're open and honest with them. Like, hey, we want to get this fixed for you. Let's go to the owner and talk to them about it. Or like, I've paid for certain things over the years of like, hey, like that was on me. Like, I should have gotten fixed. The owner didn't know about it. I'm going to pay for this. Or when you moved in, it wasn't as clean as you wanted. The owner doesn't want to give a credit because that was our job to get it cleaned. I'll pay for the cleaning. Like stuff like that, where it's like, if all you're looking at is at your bottom dollar of what you made, then you're not going to run a great business. You have to be okay spending some money sometimes for your tenants, which is, I feel like, is rare, in today's day and age. But
if we have to cut this out because it'll get you in trouble, let me know. But what do you think about out-of-state investors?
We have, out of our investors, I've only met probably 10% of them in person. So again, it goes back to what is their goal with the property? You know, I think out of state investors are fine. I don't have any issues with them. We work with a lot of out of state investors. We have investors out of country who invest in Indianapolis. You know, Indianapolis has this weird reputation that you can go buy a house for $60,000 and put $5,000 into it and make $1,000 a month. Like, I don't know where they got this from, probably Bigger Pockets or some weird podcast somewhere. But like I said, I think it's not where you're at. It's not who you are. It's honestly the people who are extremely high leverage and they have one property. They're my biggest headache. If you have 10 properties, one of them goes vacant, it's like, cool, the other 9 are covering the mortgage. You know, it's when you're just starting out as an investor and you think it's going to go perfect. And then the second you buy the house, you have to replace the water heater or you have to fix this or do that. Those are the biggest headaches. Or the tenant doesn't pay one time, or they pay a half payment up front and they don't pay till like the next month. It's like, you have to be able to have some kind of operating cost for your investment property. You just do. It's just reality. You're going to have to spend money on it. And the people who are the biggest headache are the people who refuse to spend money. I guess we did have one out-of-state investor from California. Right when they bought the property, there was a massive roof leak. And I sent my guy up there and he didn't even want to walk on it because the thing was like squishy. The whole thing, like all the decking underneath was wet and squishy. And they didn't want to replace the roof. And I was like, you have to replace the roof. And they said, we'll send a different guy out. And the different guy went out and like spot fixed it, and kind of is what it is at this point. But I just told him like, hey, if the roof, something happens to the roof, that's on you. Like, you have to live with what you did on the roof, or you're gonna have to spend money later. It's not always life and death. You know, it's just spend money now or spend money later. But there's people like that who just don't want to spend on the property when you're gonna have to spend money at some point.
Yeah. And the only reason I ask is because like sometimes when you get so far away from the reality of it, it's so much easier just to put off stuff to make the decision. You don't have to see the client. You don't have to see the house. It's just money to you. Just like and when it comes to like a client, it's like a homeowner, it's a little bit different than someone who goes and eats a Panda Express. Like they just have a bad chicken or something. But it's like, no, like this is the person's life, but they're hundreds of miles away. So who cares?
I would agree with that for sure. And you know, coming and seeing your property at some point is probably a good thing to do. I don't love to own I don't want to own properties out of state. I want to be able to see where the property's at and be able to go look at it myself. I'm also not super trusting. So we want to build that trust with out of state investors, that we can send them tons of videos and communicate and say exactly what's wrong. But I don't know if there's anything that someone could do out of state for me that would satisfy like what I want to see on my own property. So I think there's also like certain people who just can't do it, you know, and some people just don't care. It's just a number to them. It's just, you know, what is the ROI on it? And those are the people that, you know, tend to make it a little more difficult for us, for sure.
So the real estate side. So now we're actually helping normal everyday people get into their first time homes. All these things, I'm guessing, like just have some really practical features to it. You could be the real estate agent for the investor. You could take the 3% on those, which I'm sure is a different experience too. It's all data and numbers. Talk to me about the real estate side of just purchasing and just going with a family. It's probably much different than...
It's 100% different. Yeah. I mean, dealing with an investor is very numbers driven when you're a realtor. And sometimes it honestly makes it easier because it's like, are you going to write an offer? Yes or no? With the primary home buyer, it's a lot more emotional, especially on the buy side. Listings are way more transactional. It's like, how much can I get for my property? How much am I going to net after? When you're working with a first time home buyer or just a buyer in general, it's even for me, like we're literally buying a new house right now and I'm so I'm terrible. I'm the worst negotiator for myself, like hands down. We had the inspection. I'm like, we're good. I just want to buy the house. You know, I just want to move on and get the house. But for my client, I'm like, no. We're going to ask for this, this, and this. They push back. Okay, we're going to push back here. But yeah, working with primary home buyers is super fun. Working with friends and family, you know, if you're good at it, is super fun. If you like cross lines and people get mad or whatever, I haven't had that experience yet. I've had amazing clients in my friends and family that I've worked with, but it is a completely different experience. I'm not your realtor, and I never will pretend to be the realtor that's going to walk in and be like, oh my gosh, the white shaker cabinets, these are so pretty, like blah, blah, blah. Like, that's just not me. You know, I will tell you factual things about the property. I will help you get the best deal. I'll also tell you what's wrong with the property rehab wise, because that's the experience that I have. And I'm going to love your property, but if you're going to go buy, I might get in trouble for saying this, but if you're going to go buy like a 3 or 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom, cookie cutter home and, you know, Dries or Lennar or what Pulte, like it's just 4 walls and a roof, man. Like there's nothing really special about it. You make it a house, you know, said that backwards. You make it a home. It is a house and you make it a home, and it can be special after you move in, but people get very attached to that specific house. And it's like, there will be another one. Let's not go crazy on negotiations because you're getting emotionally attached. If you love it, I'm with you. Let's go for it. But if it's just because like the ease of the transaction and you want to get it done, let's not give up 10 grand of repairs you're going to have to do later just because you want this one. We can just wait for the next one to come on the market. So it's been really fun. The Lord's been kind, and we've worked with a lot of people and various walks of life. A lot of first-time buyers. Some people, like a lot of, the list and buy situation where there's a lot of stuff going on. We've got a couple of those going on right now. But really just finding a house for people to call a home is really fun, especially with friends and family.
What do you think about the housing market right now? Just your overall temperature, things that you're encouraged by, and then things that you think people are just blowing out of proportion, and then probably the reality of where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we live in Hamilton County. Hamilton County is a very blessed county. There's a lot of money here. Carmel, you've got a $17 million home. And like Jim Irsay's home is for sale right now in Carmel, which is what, like 12 million. And then you've got a $300,000 flip, that needs a ton of work that, Joe Schmo has lived in for 80 years and it's still got wood paneling. So like you've got every spectrum of house that you can buy in Carmel and Zionsville. Fishers is not as bad. There's for sure still flips there. When you talk about Westfield, like it's a lot of new builds. You talk about Zionsville, it's just expensive in general. So like here as a realtor, I would say the market is still very strong. It's not the $50,000 over asking, appraisal gaps, 4 offers in 1 day scenario that we were in a couple years ago. But if it's a good house in a good place with a good price point, it's still moving pretty quickly. I'd say 30 days on market is not a crazy number to see anymore. That used to be like, holy cow, why have we not sold our house? We need to drop this thing $100,000 because something's not right. But 15 to 28, 30 days is not terrible on market. Indianapolis is a little bit different. I think they're getting hit a little bit harder. Things are definitely sitting for a longer. Like I was looking at investment property yesterday. It's been on for 140 days. And it's like, why has this been sitting for so long? The rents are strong. And then you start talking to the realtor and they've got like all these contingencies about why, like what won't let you inspect the property, won't let you do this or that. And you're like, okay, well, this is why no one's buying your house. So like there's obviously circumstances like that. But in general, for a primary home buyer, if you want the HGTV style, open concept, neutral colors, like, yeah, you're probably going to have some competition in Hamilton County. If you're okay doing any sort of repairs, like you can probably get a pretty good deal right now. Things are sitting on the market. You can probably offer underneath what they have it listed for within reason, and they'll work with you. Before it was like, hey, we can only do 210. It's listed for 235 or whatever. It's like, see ya. Now it's like, okay, can you come up to 215? Can you do 220? Can I give you concessions so that you can make your loan better? But yeah, I think overall I'd give it a B minus. We're not in like A. I guess for a buyer it's better. For a seller it's a little bit more like B minus. For a buyer right now, you're probably looking at B plus, A minus. Like it's a pretty good market to buy a house. Yeah.
And I'm just so confused where like so many people are sitting on the sidelines. It's just like we're slow, but there are so many deals to be had if you have the cash. I'm guessing it's just people don't stay in their jobs very long, so they can't qualify.
Yep.
Don't have much of savings. Credit score might be pretty low because they're in credit card debt. Maybe those factors, but for how much it has slowed down, you could get a deal. You're not having to bid with a bunch of people. You could get seller concessions. So it's kind of a weird market why we're so slow. But
yeah, I mean, you're a lender too. I think the thing that you probably hear every single day is like, oh my goodness, rates are so high. It's like 6% is not high. If you look historically, it was in the teens. Talk to your great grandparents if they're still alive, or your grandparents, they probably had a 15% loan or an 18% loan or whatever, or they did like an interest only scenario and they got, that was not a great thing. So like, I think our generation is extremely short-term memory. Like we're not looking at the long term. I'm 28. I think you're about the same. We want things quick. It's the social media, it's the instant gratification, it's the, we don't want to look at the long run of like, if I bought the house right now, I have a 30-year fixed mortgage. It's 30 years from now when I'm 68 or whatever that math is, 58, it's going to be the same exact payment. They can't change it once it's on paper. Your taxes can change, so I guess it'll shift a little bit, but and your insurance. So I guess forget what I just said. But your loan payment your mortgage won't pay. Yeah, it's marginal. But if you wait 5 years and the house goes up $100,000, like even if the interest rates come down, you're going to spend $100,000 more on that property. And then you're going to pay interest on that $100,000 as you make your mortgage payments. So I think there's a lot of just short-term memory. There's a lot of instant gratification of I want a good deal now, or like you said, it's people thinking that the rates are too high and not running their actual numbers and not just jumping into the game. And I think there is this thing with like our generation that they just, we want to bounce around. We want to be nomads. I want to work remotely. I want to move to California. I want to come here. I want to live in a van. Like they just like renting, and also a lot of people just don't know how to fix anything. And that's been every generation. I know your dad's super handy. Like he was a contractor, does all of his own stuff, but there's a lot of people who have no idea how to use a screwdriver. Like Mr. Sparky, I'm about to slam on Mr. Sparky right now. It's an electrical contractor here in Indianapolis. I think the last time I talked to them, they charge $160 to change an outlet. An outlet costs 60 cents at Lowe's. 60 cents, and they charge you $160 per outlet. It is insane. And it takes literally, I can change an outlet in 45 seconds, 2 minutes. Like, it's 4 wires.
We're in the wrong business.
I'm in the wrong business, bro. I'm gonna start an outlet business. All I do is switch people's outlets. It's just so like easy.
Most minor home repairs.
Oh, it's the easiest thing ever.
Oh my!
And people pay it, because they have no idea. People are afraid. It's missing an outlet cover. They're like, do we need to back out of this house right now? I'm like, no, we just put an outlet cover on the thing, man. Like I'll do it for you when we close it. Like it's not hard. People just have no clue. And I'm not trying to bag on people who don't know anything. Like if you asked me to do somebody's taxes, I'd be like, pay the dude over there $1,000 an hour because I have no clue what's going on. So everyone's got different skills, but like if you want to buy a house, just do any sort of minor, YouTube University DIY stuff and you'll be fine. It won't be that big of a deal. But people, it's a you don't know what you don't know. You feel like you're getting into a big thing, big mess, big project. Like I just put a clamp on wires under the garbage disposal for an electrical hazard. Like it's not an electrical hazard. It's been here for 20 years. Nothing's happened. Like nothing's going to change with a clamp. So just stuff like that of like, people are just afraid of what could happen.
And you said it like perfectly, but it's like the narrative across the United States. It's like every angle, people are just freaking out. You have like news stations, you have social media giving you advice on every other option. Like, no, you should not buy a house now. Like, oh, you should buy it. Like, and it's just like kind of overwhelming. And so I think they're just like paralyzed, so to speak. But man, the interest rate conversation, just like it truly baffles me. They're wanting like the 5%. They just want to see 5% so bad. But right now we just had a bunch of predictions that came out that said the 5 is not coming for another year or two. And it's like, we just want to wait. It's like when it's in the government's hands and you don't get to take your own life in your hands, like you're just on a roller coaster all the time. And it's like, you can refinance, like you could do it down the road. But
and the people who say that they're going to outsave the market, like, oh, I'll just save up money in my job. I'll put more money down. It's like, okay, $250,000 house, that's $50,000. How much can you save per year? Because if that 250 turns into 300, that's a big down payment jump to 20%. So it's like, unless if you're in a very high paying job and you have very low overhead or bills and you've got a lot of discretionary income and you can actually save, I don't know, $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 a year. That barely meets that difference of 250 to 300 for a 20%. So like, it's just unrealistic.
That's maybe 5% of the population.
Yeah, it's very little. That's people that are saving $1,000 a month, especially in the current market with inflation the way it is. So like, eggs used to cost $2 less a couple years ago. Now you have to factor all that in, and that's again that goes back to people's excuses. But we also are like people are renting their owners that we have are renting them now more than ever they have before, price wise. And every investor's like, every year I'm going to raise the rent. That's just the norm. It's a 5% increase every year. So if you're a renter, now your budget is changing 5% every year. So yeah, it's just education. It's telling them, you gotta be kind.
Just a couple guys ranting.
Ranting about real estate.
But this is, like you said, there's industries where if you're on the other side of it, you're like, what's everyone doing? This makes no sense. It's like when you're in the industry, you start to see behind the scenes. And it's like, it's just, we're not communicating good enough. So we just got to keep going, banging the horn. But okay, so at the end here, we just go over some rapid fire questions for you. I actually didn't tell you to some of these.
Let's do it.
Maybe if you watched another episode, you'll know. But so a couple here. Try to keep them rapid. But if you have a free weekend, are you staying in or going on a spontaneous trip?
I have 3 kids, 3 and under. We're for sure staying at the house. If I don't have to take my kids and it's me and my wife, we'll go get sushi.
Do you prefer a good movie or a good book?
Oh, movie for sure.
What's your favorite movie?
Oof. What genre?
Let's do like drama thriller.
Have you seen like Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal?
I've heard about it. I haven't
It's
seen
great.
it.
It's a great movie. It's a great thriller. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a movie that won't get me in trouble knowing that I've watched it. I will watch. Okay, so if I'm watching a movie with my wife, we'll watch like not even a rom-com, she doesn't like that, but just a good feeling movie where there's a good ending. If I'm watching a movie by myself, I want like all the violence you can possibly imagine. Like I just want to like be entertained. I'm a guy like Gladiator, Braveheart, like that style of movie, where it's just like, or like Warrior, the UFC movie with Tom Hardy, just like good violence, just beating up on each other, just being men, or like a good war movie. I'll take a good war movie.
Yeah. This one's kind of a hard one, so if you need some time to think, one quote that has always stuck with you.
I don't know if it's an actual quote. No, this is actually a really good one. My dad pounded this into my head over the years, and if you say I can't, it stands for I certainly am not trying. And I tell my kids that now. I used to think that I would never say anything that my dad said to my kids or like pass it along, but that phrase has for sure stuck with me. And in business, like you can't say I can't, especially if you're the business owner. You just have to figure out the solution. But also I feel like people get stuck when they say I can't, like, oh, I can't bench 215. It's like, you can literally do it. I don't care who you are. You can do it. You just have to put in the work to get there. Or, it's like, oh, we tried to call this investor and they didn't want to buy a house. They said they can't do it right now. It's like, well, why can't they? Did you figure out the reason why? And that just goes around asking extra questions, taking it the extra step, creative thinking. It's not a quote, it's not like a famous quote, but my dad's pretty famous. So, I can't means I certainly am not trying. Yeah.
Okay. Are you a foodie, coffee connoisseur, or experienced junkie?
Experienced junkie. I'm not a foodie, like a bougie, I'm going to take a picture on my plate and send it to all my friends. Do I love great food? Yes. The only thing that we really spend up on is sushi. That's like, we want to have good sushi. Otherwise, I'll take down any food that you put in front of me. I had 2 brothers and I was in the military. It takes me 10 minutes to eat my food. I don't sit there and mess around. So I wouldn't call myself a foodie. Experienced junkie for sure. Been skydiving, bungee jumping, I don't know, whatever else, go-karting, horseback riding, all that stuff. So like, that's for sure. If me and my wife are going on a date, we're going to do something like that. Yep.
So the sushi thing, what's one underrated spot that people should know about?
Kobayashi. Actually, no, I'm not going to tell you because everyone's going to go to my place. No, Kobayashi in Noblesville is the best sushi place around. I mean, that's a hot take, but like, it is so good. There's a double cherry blossom there, or cherry roll, double blossom. I don't know what it's called, but it's so good. Yeah, it's a little hidden gem. It's right next to the Speedway on Greenfield Avenue off of 37 in Noblesville. It doesn't look like it'd be good sushi, but it is great sushi. Yeah.
So the very last question is actually something that the last guest had left for you, and this is what he asked. Is there any major regret that you've ever had in your life? And
wow, deep question. Is there any major regret that I have in my life? Is there any major life lessons? For sure. I don't think there's really any regret. I'm a believer, so I believe in, God has a plan for my life. I think he works out everything for the good of those who love him. So there's things that have happened in my life. There's decisions that I made that, I for sure would undo them if I could. But those have also taught me things for my future self, my current self, that, I wouldn't have been able to learn without it. Part of it is like, from a financial aspect in real estate, like you can make money quickly and you can have like this blow up. If you were to hand me, what our current income is like 10 years ago, I definitely would spend it significantly different than I would now. So part of it is like just general maturing of different things like that. There's some investments that went really far south that I would definitely undo, but I wouldn't call that a regret. Again, that's learning how to be better at business. Yeah, I honestly would probably say to just like enjoy the season that you're in as much as you possibly can. I wouldn't say that's even a regret. It's just when you're in certain seasons, like if you're in college, be in college, like go all in everything that you do. If you're in high school, I wanted to leave high school. I had senioritis like in freshman year. Like I was out, I'm not a big school guy. But I would just say enjoy the season that you're in. Love being with your friends, love being with your wife, like pre-kids, being with your kids when they're little. Like my oldest son is 3. Like I feel like we just had him yesterday. The time is flying. And pretty soon he's going to be 18. And I left when I was 18 and I haven't lived back at home since. Like I only have whatever that math is, 14 years, 15 years left. It's going to go by so fast. So I would say regret, not necessarily, but just enjoy the seasons that you're in and learn from your experiences. That would be the biggest thing.
I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I learned so much that I have actually wanted to learn
Awesome,
about
dude.
just like investing and stuff in the real estate market that I don't necessarily touch yet, but I want to. So I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Awesome.
We're believers, our values. And so I just love how you serve property management, which is a relatively hard industry historically, and are serving people through the Lord. And so I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate this conversation. I think you dropped so much just practical wisdom there. And so, man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. The only thing that I would close with is like, don't try and be someone you're not, like, especially in the real estate industry. I think you touched about it earlier, is there's this social media vibe of like, oh, I sold 30 houses this year. I drive a, Maserati or a BMW, and I wear this and I do that. And like, just be who you are. Like, serve your clients with who you are, be open and honest with them, and you'll have business. That's just how it is. That's how business works. Just be who you are, market yourself for who you are, and don't try and be fake. But that's it.
Before we get off here, you have 2 podcasts yourself, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. If you want to tell.
Yep. We do have 2 podcasts. Hoosier Homes podcast is the real estate business podcast. And then we also have For the Truth. That is a Bible Christianity podcast where me and my buddy discuss. Right now we're going through eschatology, which is not like a light, easy thing to talk about. It's big concepts. We did hermeneutics. We're doing eschatology. We just do current event stuff as well. But Hoosier Homes is business, real estate. For the Truth, they're both on Spotify. They're both on YouTube. We're trying to be as consistent as possible once a week. So yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude. Appreciate it.